Hello everybody, Joe Bag of Donuts here. Welcome back for another episode of Mihoyo. My headphones are really loud. Let's just turn that down just a smidge. There we go. What happened last time? Stuff happened. Mainly side stories, and guess what? We're doing more, I guess not really side stories, but point fives, whatever these chapters are called. And I was told to read the other little blue book over here, whatever this is. Wonderful World of Ploys. That seems useful to know how a ploy actually works, considering we have like no definitive information to go off of, and any details we do have are fuzzy. So, how do I say that? Is that just Carnegie? Huh, seems like it. The Carnegie case. Sure, whatever. I just woke up, so if I sound incoherent, and like unable to form a coherent like train of thoughts, that's why. Fortunately, I just ate, so hopefully, once the fuel starts burning in me and I like retain my sapience, I'll be able to talk more gooder. But no promises. I'm all out of coffee. I don't want to make any tea right now. The only thing I have on my desk is a disgusting monster that I bought by accident. I thought it was a sugar-free one. It's not. It's like, what is it? It's like a Monster Reserve. God, my dad's calling me. Give me a second. All right, and I'm back. Sorry about that. Only 20 minutes on the phone with my dad. So which means my IQ's dropped by 20 points. So, forgive me if I'm even worse than I was when I started. And last recording session, too. Because I felt I was a little, I wasn't bad, but it was like, I was struggling a bit. But anyway, moving on. No matter how busy one is, any person living within human means is certain to have at least some free time. Like me, I have like 2.5 hours before I have to get ready for work. Well, leave for work, I'm already ready, which is when I'm sneaking this little recording in. Before or after eating, for example. It's difficult to eliminate the time required to prepare a meal and the time after one finishes eating. This is particularly the case for those who do a lot of thinking. Since the body needs to use energy to digest after eating, there's less available for the brain to use.
ナイキはあれでしょ ?2K の文字りでしょ
Yeah.
アテナの持ってる縦じゃなくて小さな勝利の女神の方。陸
Not
上
many
競
people
技
know
に
that,
勝つ
though.
ってイメージじゃない
It's also a mobile game gacha for ass fetishists.
さすがブランド品とか大好きな青子さん。どうでもいい知識だけはそれなりっすね。
The studious resident of the mansion was now taking refuge on the sofa, looking exhausted. Hako was talking to the robin perched on the table. The bluebird flapped its wings, doing its best to join in on the after-dinner conversation. Alice was reading in the sunroom. Discussion of how to deal with the encroaching enemy mage wouldn't start for another 30 minutes.
じゃあアディダスはもしかしてアディオスの文字りっすか
You think? I forgot
あ
the
れは
robin
普
talks
通に
like
名前
this.
じゃなかったっけほら、グリム童話みたいに作った兄弟の名前がそのままブランド名になっちゃったのよ。
ブラザーグリムは童話を作ったわけじ
Yeah,
ゃな
they
い
just
の。
compiled them.
埋もれていた口伝を収集して、
Mm-hmm.
物語に仕立て直して丁寧に編纂した人たちよ。職人というより学者の類ね。まあ多少は詐欺師めいたところもあるけれど。
If you wanna say that.
へー
Like Disney.
じゃあアンデルセンは人魚姫とか親指姫とか超メジャーだけど。あと醜いアヒルの子。
I'm pretty sure those are original.
自分裸の王様とかたまんないっす。シンパシー感じるっすよ。あのクリスタルキングに。
What, running around naked?
アンデルセンは学者というより作家でしょうね。彼の創作意欲は裕福層や大衆、平凡な幸福を得ている人々、果ては女性像への憤りから生まれたものだと言われているし、知的好奇心から筆を取ったのではなく、感情を訴えるために筆を取った人。
And for it, he died bitter and alone from liver failure.
あまり
Good times.
こういう説明はしたくないのだけれど、それぞれ分けて説明するなら、マザーグースは歌、ブラザーグリムは物語、 アンデルセンは偶話ね。
ミツバチマッチはアニメっすね。ところで青
Ain't
子
wrong.
さん、アシックスの由来は何すか？
え
Yeah, I have no idea what we're talking about.
これは私も小学校の
I'm
頃
unfamiliar
友
with
達に聞いたも
Japanese
のなん
sportswear
で
brands.
真偽はわからないんだけど、アシックスってもともと3つの会社が合併してできた会社なのよ。で3社の社長が集まると足が6本になるじゃない、だから足6、あくまで俗説だけどね。
Alice had dropped her book on the floor of the sunroom and was biting her lip. She was clearly trying to feign calm and to breathe as if nothing had happened. She thought she was doing a convincing job of it.
あの
Alice,
子の笑いのツボもわかんないわね。
それはどうすかね。あんまりにもつまんなかったから怒ってるのかもしれないっす。だってアリスさん、怒り浸透しても笑顔になるんすよ。自分たまに見るっす。アリスさんの日記を盗み見てると後ろでそういう顔してるっす。それ以上見ると死ぬわよって。でも勘弁してほしいっす。見ちゃうものは見ちゃうっすよ。自分から素行調査を取ったらもう基礎本能しか残らない気もするっす。
Robin felt compelled to give a counter-argument for some reason. Alco let out a sigh. Even Alice sympathized with her over the difficult familiar.
ただいま。お、今日は2人ともいるんだな。
It was this time that Sojiro returned. He must have gotten home from his part-time job.
おかえり、お疲れ様。
Oh yeah. I'm holding my monster in my hand because I'm so used to like having a coffee cup. I'm tempted to drink it, but I don't think I finished telling my story about it, about how awful it is. It's Monster Reserve Orange Dreamsicle. I can like feel my fucking teeth dissolve when it's in my mouth. It's horrendous. I'm also not that big a fan of like orange creamsicle. I like orange, I like cream sodas, I like cream in general, but something about like carbonated orange creamsicle, it might be better now actually, now that it's been sitting open on my desk for a day. Some of the carbonation might be gone. Let's test it out. Honestly, yeah, it's better now that it's flat. Weird. Oh, there it is. The inside of my mouth is like coated in sugar. I'm gonna need to brush my teeth after. Again. Alco's warm welcome was quite the opposite from the faint response from the sunroom.
夕食は済ませてきたからいらないよ。
Well, the perks of working at a restaurant.
じゃあ、夜のバイトに備えてちょっと寝てくる。
Sojiro gave Alice a wave as he left. The dull thud of something dropping was heard as he entered the hallway.
おーい、なんか落ちたわよ。
Alco peeked out from the sofa to yell for Sojiro. I didn't see him carrying anything, so it might have been him that fucking dropped.
ああ、ポケットに入れっぱなしだった。
Sojiro calmly and naturally walked back to pick up what looked like some kind of envelope. Perhaps it was instinct, but the human eye was drawn to motion, even though it was something one had no personal interest in. Alco keenly followed Sojiro's hand with her eyes. Hey, yo, that's a good amount of dough right there. What a cash! She had to restrain herself from shouting her thoughts out loud as she leaped up from the sofa.
どうした青崎？
I mean, he probably does get paid in cash. Probably went to the bank.
どうしたってその。
Alco found it difficult to come up with a proper response to the pure, innocent eyes staring back at her. She was ashamed of how she had jumped up at the enticing sight of so much money.
なんでもない。そうよね。普通にアルバイトの給料日よね。にしても結構もらってんのね、あんた。
Oh my guys are working like 4 jobs. There was an awkward pause before Sojiro smiled and returned back to his room. He's worrying you're gonna fucking try to fleece him for more money. Akko sat back down on the sofa, still feeling a bit awkward. This was what set it all off. It began a series of events that the Robin would later name the Dosh Affair. The dangerous thing about lots of money is people always come asking to borrow it. It was the next day, and around the same time as the previous day's incident. Akko was coming to pour some tea and relax when she heard Sojiro and Robin engaging in some kind of debate in the drawing room.
その人が言うには、人と会うたびに小さな親切を尽くしてあげるべきだと。そうして一日が終わったら、その親切が何をもたらしたか、よく噛み締めなさいって。
Alright, well, that's a good way to go about life, I guess.
たった一回の言葉だけの親切でも、相手にとっては大きな意味があるんだそうだ。それ。
うは、だから自分にビーフジャーキーくれたっすか？でもそれ親切じゃなくて袖の下っていう伝統芸能じゃないっすかね。
He's just trying to cure you from the inside. All that salt, ugh. At least for a little thing like a bird. Sojiro's serious demeanor was more like a consultation or a proposal than it was idle chatter.
まあ、あいつが妙なのはいつものことか。
Yeah, having philosophical debates with a bird. Akko decided to ignore what was going on in the drawing room and head straight for the sunroom. There, she saw Sojiro's coat on the chair.
ちょっと宗十郎、コート置きっぱなしじゃない。今のコート掛けか、
Yeah, does
自
this
分の部屋に
fucking
持って
chair
行
look
っ
like a
て。
hanger? I say as like every single chair in my entire house has like some form of coat or jacket on it. She stopped herself mid-sentence. She could see the same kind of envelope that Sojiro had dropped on the ground yesterday inside his coat pocket. And it was even thicker than the one she saw the day before.
ふ、ふー。
She wouldn't allow herself to make a spectacle about it like she did yesterday. She reminded herself that she was a model student and student council president
さ
who
あ
would never
紅茶紅茶っと。
take money without asking. Feigning disinterest, she had listened in on the conversation going on in the drawing room. Sojiro was still in deep conversation with the Robin. Perhaps he hadn't heard her calls.
都会の孤独は万人に平等だ。一見して身勝手な暴力じみた押し着せの善意も長い目で見ればその人のためになる。
なるほど。親切の押し付けには一銭もかからないっすからね。ちゃんちゃん人助けす
Sure
る
about
っ
that?
すよ。
うん。ただより高いものはないって言うけどね。
どっちっすかこのシャバゾン。
Akko was so intent on eavesdropping, she'd completely forgotten that she came to pour a cup of tea. There's no way she could ignore such a suspicious conversation.
こうも言うんだ。幸福になりたければ、初めは恨まれてもいいと。
What do you mean?
やれ金を返せだの詐欺師だの言われても、いずれその人のためになると分かっていれば、心を鬼にできる。人に尽くしている喜びが、後ろめたさとか帳消しにするらしい。
それ知ってるっす。でも微妙に違うような。
Yeah, I'm not quite grasping what you're talking about there, but... Akko agreed with the Robin in this case. Sojiro was referring to the words of a famous entrepreneur. If we want to find happiness, let's stop thinking about gratitude or gratitude or ingratitude, and give for the inner joy of giving. That was the actual quote.
あるいはこうとも。
I've never seen the word like ingratitude before, but it makes sense.
貯金のある人はその富を温存するよりも会社がより豊かになるために使うべきだと。
それも知ってるっす。でももう完全に違うような。
Akko was becoming upset with how much she wanted to agree with the Robin at this point. This was a quote from an even more famous entrepreneur. Surplus wealth is a sacred trust which its possessor is bound to administer in his lifetime for the good of the community. Philanthropy, so that way you get the government off your ass about paying income tax. This was how that one was supposed to go.
信じられるのはお金だけなのかもしれない。だって奥さんも子供もずっと一緒にいてくれるわけじゃない。不幸な事故で先立たれることだってある。でもお金は別だった。お金で幸福は買えないけど、幸福はお金になる。今は人の親切と温かい布団があればそれでいいと、その人は言った。
なんか小児らしくないこと言ってるわね、あいつ。
Those words were a bit strange and worrisome. Naoko couldn't spend much time worrying about it. She didn't have the capacity to worry about anyone else right now. Her battle with the enemy mage was always lurking just beneath the surface.
どっちにしろ
I was gonna say
私には関
behind
係
there
ない
instead
か。
of beneath, which is why I fucking had a weird mouth noise on that one. Don't know why I have to explain myself to you people, but... Naoko shrugged it off and turned her attention away from the drawing room. She told herself that she would forget all about this commotion by tomorrow anyway. And my voice cracked. That hasn't happened in like years.
Tadaima.
Got more money today? Sojiro was back from his job with a smile on his face again today. Work truly was its own reward. His mood was infectious, and Aqua smiled back while relaxing on the sofa.
はい、お疲れ様。休んでていいわよ。今日は昼からずっとバイトだったんでしょ？夕飯ならこれから作って何？
Her smile suddenly turned frigid.
どうした青崎？木の実の冗談を聞いた時みたいな顔して。
どうしたじゃない！いい加減黙っていられなくなった！いいから、そのポケットのもん出しなさい！
Yeah, where are you getting all this money? Are you one of those people who, like, taking, like, everything out of his bank account and keeping it in, like, a shoebox under his mattress? Sojiro reached in and pulled out the contents of his pockets without knowing why he was being scolded. That's a lot of money. He placed the now all too familiar brown envelope on the table. It was far too thick to be any normal envelope. It was bright, enticing, almost magical. There was nothing else it could be than a stack of cash.
まあ、これはどうしたの？
Alice innocently asked Sojiro. She was a bit dazzled at the sight, but there was no mistaking it for any illusion.
バイト代だよ。
What part-time jobs are you doing besides the ones we know about?
そう。それはいいことだわ。明日はごちそうね。
The two remained calm, despite the abnormally large wad of cash before them. That being said, the one with the most common sense in the house finally had to speak up.
んなわけないでしょ！ちょっと宗十郎、そこに正座！どう？
She had such a long pause after saying Seiza. I thought she was done. She knew more than anyone how serious this was.
説明って何をだ？
決まってるでしょ！この札束の正体よ！
I know it's the 80s and money is easy to come by, but
あんた今何やってんの？
this is a little
どう
absurd.
考えても真っ当な職種とは思えないんですけど。
まっとうだぞ。この新しいバイトは少なくとも法には触れていないと聞いた。ちゃんとやれば危ない目にも合わない。
And that would be
コンビニエンスストアより割がいいし、俺でも簡単にできるという。
unbelievable. Nako was just about dizzy with rage by this point. At least not illegal. That's like when an obviously drunk person tries to contend that they are indeed quite the contrary.
正気に戻れ！日ごとお金が倍々に増えていくバイトなんてあるわけないでしょ！いいから仕事の内容を言いなさい。内容を。あんたどう考えても騙されてるから。
Well, when things seemed too good to be true, they usually are. Sojiro kept his mouth shut. He didn't seem to be too threatened by Aoko's reprimands.
ダメだ。いくら青崎でも教えられない。 あんまり人に話すことでもない。
You're just digging yourself deeper, bud.
でも安心してくれ。分類的にはちょっとした人助けと言えるだろう。あと紹介してくれた人とは一度しか会ってないし、支払いは常に現金だ。
Again, fairly suspicious.
この田舎バカ、その文脈からして怪しすぎるんだっていうの。
But hey, he's making out like a bandit, so who cares? Akko stamped her foot in frustration. But who could blame her after hearing the standard lines for a scam? It's a new job. The pay is good and anyone can do it, and I'm not supposed to talk about it. Despite all that, Sojiro was still refusing to spill the beans. They hadn't known each other for that long, but Akko was well aware of Sojiro's personality. Steadfast explained him well. Once he made a decision, nothing could make him change his mind about it. At times like this, it was near impossible to get him to talk.
厄介な。
Akko backed off, realizing it would be a challenge to get him to say anything more at this point. Sojiro couldn't figure out what was upsetting her.
なんで青崎は怒ってるんだ？
She's always mad. She's like my fucking sister in that point. Akko decided to give up on getting anything useful out of him.
そんなうまい話はないからよ。アリスもそう思うでしょ？
Yeah, some people just like don't think they're living life unless they're angry all the time about something.
そうね。青子の言いたいことはわからないけど、しずきくんはもっとやるべきだと思う。
Yeah, bring in more money. And so, Alice contributed absolutely nothing useful. Also, if you want to not pay taxes on that money, put it in a security deposits box instead of a savings account. You won't gain interest on it, but you also won't have to pay taxes on it. That's what my grandparents do with their money, because otherwise they, would have technically too much money in savings to get like public assistance. And considering they don't work anymore, I'm willing to look a little other way at some shady dealings, and old people got to do what they got to do.
青崎、
いいわよもう。よくわかんない理由で話す気ないんでしょ、宗十郎は。
And for the record, they're not extremely well off. They're like old farmers who like sold the farm and whatnot, so they're just fucking coasting on what they got, which isn't much.
考えてみれば、あんたなんてただの同居人なわけだし、私があれこれ文句言う筋合いはなかったわ。
Akko shooed Sojiro away with her hand. Unfortunately, she wasn't going to be able to sit there and stew like she wanted to. She couldn't just ignore the problem like Alice.
あいつはどう見ても騙されてるし、最終的にとばっちり食らうのは私だし。
She needed to be bold and make him quit his new job of his immediately. It was what a true friend would do. And it was also her duty as the student council president. Yep, just fucking justify your want to be nosy. However, Akko started to think otherwise. Morals and a clear conscience were important, sure, but for a student living solely off their parents' generosity, that kind of money was hard to pass up.
そうね。最終的に辞めさせるのは絶対にしても、これまで稼いだお金を捨てるのはもったいないし。仕方ない。ここは絡め手でいくか。
The wicked, scheming student council president sank deeper into the sofa. Her ability to play things by ear and her miserly, okay. Miserly nature were both her strongest and weakest points. The next day, noon. Alka waited until her roommates were gone, then picked up the phone in the foyer.
もしもし、飛丸？宗十郎がこんなことになってるんだけど、あんた心当たりない？
The sound of the first train leaving the station could be heard far off in the distance. This was that time of morning when the town was deciding if it felt like waking up or not. Tobimaru Tsukiji was having a walk down the city streets at sunrise, enjoying the fresh, crisp morning air.
ほんと、街ってのは人間がいないだけで綺麗なもんだ。
The crowds had become a common complaint of Tobimaru's. To him, the tacky, over-decorated street corners were the embodiments of human desire. At this time of day, the streets were nothing like the circus tent of activity they usually were. The main street was completely empty. It was like a lonely, tranquil morning after a festival. That's one thing I do appreciate about working nights, is on my days off. It's like, well, I have nothing to do, so I'm just gonna, go for a drive at, 3 a.m. You know, there's, 5 other cars on the road the entire trip. So you really get to, soak it in without having to worry about everyone else. Weary men in black were busily cleaning up and restoring order in the bars after the previous night's revelry. L into R is a tricky one. Around the back entrance of the local restaurants, the kitchen crew were busy bringing in their daily ingredients while stifling back tired yawns. Birds carelessly wandered the streets. There wasn't even the sound of a single car engine to be heard. This was a uniquely refreshing sensation that could only be felt from a city morning. It existed somewhere between daily life and exciting entertainment. This was the only time of day when the bustling modern world stepped aside for a slower, more nostalgic pace.
そうか。
Tobimaru searched through his coat pockets, but only found some old receipts. He rearranged the scarf around his neck to keep the cold wind at bay. Meandering through the city streets, he ended up at Central Park, just as the morning magic began to fade. His stroll had no particular purpose. It wasn't for his health or anything like that. He was merely making his way home after a night out on the town.
バカらしい。何やってんだか。
Tobimaru had a moment of unabashed self-reflection as he drank a can of vending machine coffee. He didn't particularly hate partying all night long, but it was pretty boring since he wasn't old enough to drink alcohol. And what are you doing? Just out doing karaoke? All night? Just fucking... I mean, what else? Arcades? You can't go bar hopping. He'd been at it for a few days now, thinking it was at least better than being at home, but he was quickly growing bored of it.
年末に親戚筋が集まるのは仕方がねえし。
He grinned wryly at his own lame excuse. It was true that he was out wasting time like this because he didn't really have a place to go home to at the moment. The Tsukiji family always had a congregation of relatives over on New Year's Day, as per his grandfather's orders. This was why his siblings and other relatives had been staying over at the Tsukiji home for a few days now. If Tobimaru was there, he'd just provide fuel for the fire. He decided to avoid the family drama and not go home while everyone was there. They'd just greet him with insults anyway. And if someone tried to start a fight, he knew he wouldn't be able to resist the bait. It would only cause even more resentment and trouble for his father. So, for Tobimaru, there was nothing more pointless or less enticing than getting involved in his siblings' squabbles over the inheritance. Sounds rough, bud. Tobimaru Tsukiji was the fifth-born son to the Tsukiji family, which owned multiple plots of land in Misaki City. However, most of that land had been acquired after the war. Before that, it had been a minor noble family on the brink of ruin. The man who built the Tsukiji family into its current glory was Kimikuni Tsukiji, Tobimaru's grandfather and the current patriarch. Kimikuni married into the struggling Tsukiji family and saved them after they lost all their power during the war. The Tsukiji clan were local Shinto clergy and relied upon Kimikuni's financial assets. Kimikuni, on the other hand, had leveraged clan connections to establish himself in Misaki City. While both parties came together for mutual gain, the Tsukiji family failed to recognize just how ambitious Kimikuni was when they accepted him into their family. He wasn't the obedient son-in-law they had imagined. He had grand plans of his own, growing and developing industries within Misaki City and many other areas as well. Kimikuni controlled all these areas not as a member of the Tsukiji family, but under his own name. The castle's greatest defense was its moat, not the walls, and Kimikuni bridged the moat. It was the economic equivalent of starving out the enemy, Kimikuni's financial might subdued the noble Tsukiji family completely. In less than 10 years, there was no one in the family who could stand up against him. This businessman, accepted into the family as a mere son-in-law, had seized the Tsukiji name and the entirety of the family fortune. However, Kimikuni had fathered many children. He would not allow the Tsukiji bloodline to die out. That was also the only way to maintain the family fortune. His 3 sons and 1 daughter all married relatives of the Tsukiji family, thus strengthening the familial bonds that Kimikuni had weakened. Tobimaru was the 5th son of Hitoyoshi Tsukiji, Kimikuni's eldest son. However, his mother was not a member of the family. Tobimaru was the result of a fling with a mistress. Oh, nice. Little bastard running about. That ignoble birth defined his place in the family. He was his father's love child, although the family's dignity was somehow maintained since he was the son of Hitoyoshi. It wasn't difficult to imagine the level of mistreatment Tobimaru faced from his siblings and other relatives. Being raised in such a hostile environment made Tobimaru grow up far faster than he should have. His ability to think quickly and objectively was honed naturally within this challenging environment. Sink or swim. However, those exact traits had also brought Tobimaru a great deal of trouble. Kimikuni Tsukiji. Unfortunately, against all odds, this great leader of the Tsukiji family favored Tobimaru over everyone else, including his own eldest son. I mean, makes sense. He's like, this kid's, he's hanging in there, so clearly he's got something going on upstairs. Already showing acumen at being able to, deal with tough situations. Since Kimikuni had been a commoner himself, he did not believe in blood inheritance alone. To make matters worse, not a single coin from his great fortune had been given to any of his sons yet. The most loathsome thing in the world is the blood of the Tsukiji family. I never would have had any of you if I could have helped it. Those words were spoken at every family gathering, and they were the absolute truth. He'd taken in a liking to Tobimaru after speaking with him at these annual family gatherings, and enjoyed playing chess with him in his spare time ever since. Everyone in the family was worried Kimikuni would name Tobimaru his successor. In this way, Tobimaru had gone from being worthless to a threat in the eyes of the Kimikuni sons. The son who felt the most fear and hatred towards Tobimaru was Tobimaru's own father, Hideyoshi, who would have been the unquestionable heir as the eldest son. And this was how Tobimaru became estranged from his father. They no longer even lived in the same house. Hideyoshi always acted like they had a great father-son relationship in front of Kimikuni, but that would only last until his father was no longer around, or until Tobimaru was officially named the heir. When that happened, it would be all-out war. In any case, it would not be a pleasant story. Yeah, he's not making your life any easier for you. Tobimaru scratched his head in frustration. He really wasn't all that worried, though. In public, it looked like they had a good father-son relationship. In private, they were in the midst of a bitter inheritance dispute. Did I say bitter? Bitter. Things had always been that way, even before he met Kimikuni. The only difference was his sole protector, his father, was now his mortal enemy. Tobimaru had always been at odds with his family. His father was just one more enemy to add to that pile. Staying out all night like this was Tobimaru's way of avoiding his family. If he was home, he knew they would try to gauge his feelings. However, they wouldn't openly attack him now. Even the relatives who looked down on him and his siblings who had bullied him as a child. The worst they could do was make snide remarks. Tobimaru was, at his core, a peaceful person, who preferred to avoid trouble whenever possible. Petty revenge or even stepping up to Kimikuni's expectations weren't on his to-do list. His father's worries were unfounded, his relatives were getting riled up for no reason, and Tobimaru had no intention of stepping out of his role as the prodigal son. However, his siblings, who were around the same age as him, held a different kind of resentment. Perhaps they felt guilty for tormenting him for all those years. Perhaps it was the result of their roles being reversed. He's gonna get back at us one day. They lived in such fear of this that they didn't dare ignore Tobimaru.
そのくせ根回しはうまくねえときた。青崎ぐらいの大胆さで突っ込んでくるんならまだスリルがあるってもんだがな。
His family problems were simply a chore. They never really worried him much. He was used to human malice. Although he nearly died from the physical abuse of his siblings, oh my god. Even though someone had once tried to kill him with true murderous intent. Even though he had been exposed to how the elite, untouchable class society treated others by his eldest brother. Such a pain in the ass. These were all events that would change a person's outlook on life, but he always remained cool-headed. That was just how things were for Tobimaru. He'd grown bored of his relatives getting worked up over everything.
まあ、そのあたりは人それぞれか。親父殿には同情するけどな。あのじいさんの息子なんて波の根性じゃ務まらねえ。
Yeah, honestly, this family seems pretty fucked from top to bottom. Tobimaru honestly could not care less about who would be the next heir. He had no clear plans for the future yet. His only real goal was to wash his hands with his family and start fresh when he became an adult. Until then, everything that happened was a life experience. He continued this morning walk, thinking it was better to enjoy the nightlife now while he was still young. Oh, ain't that the truth? Once you get to like your late 20s, bro, it's like you stay up all night and you're dead for like a week. Someone was already sitting on the bench when Tobimaru entered the plaza. The crows gathered there and flew off at his approach. On the bench sat a girl dressed in black. A well-dressed old man with his cane sat with her. These were familiar faces, so he approached the bench to say hello. The old man and girl looked as if they were grandfather and granddaughter. He seemed like a kind old man spending time with his grandchild. However, the truth was...
アリス、僕は今でも思うんだ。一体何がいけなかったのか。
Was this the fucking Park Goers Alliance?
考えられるサービスはすべて実現させた。従業員への感謝も来園者への笑顔も忘れたことはない。なのに時代は僕を選ばなかった。それどころか僕の内なる芸術性を否定した。
Art?
無念だ。
Nah, it's all subjective.
知らない腐った魚のようなマスコミどもめ。何が悪夢のクリーチャーか。あんな夢にまで見そうなマスコットが他にあるだろうか。やるまい。
Oh my god, are you the fucking Kissyland guy?
なのに連中と来たらネズミを二足歩行させれば満足ときた。そもそも犬をペットにする齧歯類とか冷静に考えたら怖いぞ。動物が
Yeah,
動
don't think too
物
hard
を
about
ペ
Mickey
ットに
Mouse.
するなんてモラルが低いにも程がある。あそこはやはり
And honestly,
人間をペットにするべきじゃない
Disney
だ
like
ろうか。
characters, fucking Mickey and whatnot, they're all boring. I'm not a big fan of them besides like fucking Donald. Because, you know, he's got some spunk to him, but I was always more of a Looney Tunes guy myself. Fucking Bugs Bunny's way more entertaining than Mickey Mouse ever was. Well, except maybe some of the early Mickey cartoons when he still has some attitude, but now he's just so fucking, like, sanitized for mass consumption. There's, like, no soul in the character. Actually, this poor young woman was getting an earful from this old man. After his outburst, he paused for a moment.
いや、これは失礼。ゆり彦よ、紳士たれ。
He scolded himself and hung his head.
答えてくれ、アリス。一体僕のキッツィちゃんは何がいけなかったんだ。
角よ。角をつけるべきだったのよ。
The girl in black returned the old man's solemn bow with a grim answer of her own.
いや、 すのはいけない。子供たちが怪我をしてしまうからね。僕は傷をつけるなら体ではなく心にしたい。
I mean, a healthy amount of mental trauma is good for the development of a child. The girl nodded deeply, thinking over the implications of what this old man had just said. It's like when you're watching fucking Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory or whatever. Or is the first one Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? I can't remember. The original. And they're in the tunnel scene where it's like absolutely fucking nightmarish. That horrified me as a child. It was awful. But you know, getting mental scars makes you tougher. Tobimaru didn't really want to get involved, but he was already too close. If he passed by without saying anything, the old man would certainly make a fuss.
こんちは。こんな朝っぱらからじくじく公開中かい。時津のじいさん。いつまでも引きずってると死に損なうぜ。さっさと往生して息子たちを安心させてやんな。
おや、どこの悪ガキかと思えば豊かの子供か。おはようトビー。君も相変わらず早起きだね。
俺は朝帰りですよ。お二人みたいに健康的じゃない。そら、クオンジのお嬢さんもおはようさ。
Oh, you all get along. Well, I know you said you recognized him, so I guess I was right. This is the fucking Loner Park Alliance. The girl looked up calmly at Tobimaru's greeting. It was none other than the Witch of the Hill, Alice Kuonji.
こうしてまともに挨拶するのは
But makes sense they'd be in the same circles, considering they're both from fucking wealthy landowning
あん
families
た
in the
が
same
お付き
city.
なしで町に降りてきてるなんてよ。
そうでもないわ。この時間の公演は鳥を入れ替えるのにちょうどいいから。
ほう、そりゃ驚いた。箱入り娘じゃなかったのか、あんた。
You're not wrong.
ええ。その証拠にあなたがひどい顔で歩いているのを何度か見かけたわ。遊び歩くのは結構だけど、青子に迷惑かけないよう気をつけなさい。
ご忠告どうも。
Yeah, because if you fucking stir up Alco, she's just gonna come home and cause issues for Alice. Despite their casual greeting, Tobimaru and Alice rarely interacted, though their fathers were acquainted. Even so, the histories and spheres of influence of the two families were very different. Though the Tsukijis held sway in Misaki City, the Kuonjis influenced the whole of Japan. Normally, someone like Tobimaru would not be in the same social circles as Alice. The only reason they could interact like this was all because they were both friends with Aoko Aozaki.
バカな。トビー、君はアリスと友人関係だったのか。
No.
もしかして二人はステディな関係だとか言うまいな。
Don't worry, bud, you're not third wheeling.
やめたまえ。言ったら大事になるぞトビー。僕は心臓麻痺で急死しかねない。犯人は君であり、凶器はアリスだ。無論死因はこう書いてくれ。そうしても無情な恋の病と。
クオンジのお嬢さんはどうしてこんなダメ老人と？俺と同じ親父関係の付き合いか？
この人とはペンフレンド。分不相応にいいアンティークを持っているから、青子と二人で少しずつ取り上げているの。
Despite this one being of the only times they really talked, Tobimaru and Alice both managed to completely ignore the old man.
参ったな。アリスは照れ隠しもチャーミングだ。
No, I think she's just snubbing you.
ところで、僕のことはユーリヒと呼んでくれていいんだよ。
Mr. Tokitsu gently took Alice's hand. You're a little too old for her, bud. Alice's face remained neutral, like a doll's.
トッキー、私、いい絵付けのティーカップを探しているの。1900年代のラム工房のものとか。どうか。
あるとも。もちろんあるとも。 今度おっかないお友達と遊びに来る時までに用意しておこう。
Oh yeah, just bring the bowl right into the china shop. He responded to her request like an obedient marionette.
おいらくの恋って柄かよ。よくもまあ寝台潰さなかったもんだ。突版は。
Yeah, maybe don't be like putting the moves on high school girls. Just just a friendly piece of advice. You see, this old man was none other than Yurihiko Tokitsu. He was famous in Yashirogi as the former head of the Tokitsu Baking Company with factories all across Japan. He still served as an advisor.
老人とはなんだ。芸術家にとっての老いとは感性の凍結であり、しかるに我が心の火は絶えていない。
I mean, and in some cases, bouts of syphilitic insanity even, enhance an artist's art.
僕はまだ暑苦しいくらいに若いんだ。つぼみのような少女と恋を語らう楽しみは残っているさ。この年になるともう世間体とかどうでもよくてね。女の子と話すことだけが人生の意味にな
Can't
る
wait till I'm old
んだ
enough
ぞ。
where I can just stop giving a fuck and it's socially acceptable.
若いのかじいさんなのかどっちなんだよ。
おっと、失言。最後の方のは聞き流してくれ。僕が言いたいのは、女の子と穏やかな時間を過ごすのは最高ってことさ。
Mm-hmm. Good for the soul.
トビー、そういうの君も好きだろ？
一緒にしないでください。あいにく俺
Hell
は
yeah.
年上好みですよ。おまけに言うなら、二回り以上も年下の女に浴場する趣味もねえわけで。
Well, considering you're like 17, you fucking better not.
それはそうだろう。君がやったら犯罪だ。トビーは17歳。その二回り下が何歳になるとか口に出したらいけないよ。
Mr. Tokitsu nodded his head in self-affirmation. He chose to ignore Tobimaru's off-color remarks. Tobimaru was reluctantly impressed with the old man's magnanimity. In the end, magnanimity? Magnanimity? A lot of syllables there. Moving on.
ともかく挨拶はしましたから、邪魔者はこれで消えますよ。あとは仲良し同士、気兼ねなくどうぞ。
なんだトビー、これも縁だ。ゆっくりしていけばいい。なんなら今から僕の別荘に来るかね。ヘリ
It's
コ
not
呼
like
ぶ
you
よ。
have anything else to
楽
do
しいぞ。
or anywhere else to go.
お気持ちは嬉しいんですけどね。知る人が見れば、とんでもなくブルジョアなメンツでしょ、これ。今は避けたい気分なんですよ。そう。
Tobimaru's choice of words made his present situation clear to Mr. Tokitsu, and he reluctantly backed off. Such intuitive understanding made it obvious how this man had expanded the Tokitsu Baking Company nationwide. He had divined Tobimaru's complicated family situation in an instant.
ミックによろしく。そろそろ引退して子供たちと仲直りするよう僕が言っていたと伝えてくれ。
はいはい。ぬかに釘だろうけど伝えておきますよ。
How did he get Mick out of the old man's nickname? I mean, his name was fucking Kimikuni or whatever?
また朝に出会うことがあったら、その時は改めて挨拶させてくれ。
Alice's silence neither encouraged nor discouraged this. Tobimaru shrugged and left the plaza. He walked leisurely away from the park and came to an area of the city that was under redevelopment. There was a radio tower under construction, there that the Tsukiji family had a hand in, but most of the capital for that project was funded by foreign firms.
この電波塔は10年先を見越してのものです。いずれ携帯通信は 目まぐるしい進歩を遂げるでしょ
They were wrong. Good investment.
う。まずはそのモデ
No,
ル
late
ケースと
80s?
して
People fucking going around with bag
美
phones?
咲氏に普及させたいのです。
Like, technology gets smaller and smaller. Eventually it's going to fit in your pocket, and everyone's going to have one. The man from the foreign firm, the man from the foreign firm shook on the deal with Tobimaru's father, Hideyoshi.
いずれは娘も美咲氏に住まわせようと思
God,
っ
I
てい
know
ま
it's
す。
Hitoyoshi, but I always just want to say Hideyoshi.
その時はあなたの息子さんともぜひ交友を深めて。
Uh-huh. He was a handsome man who had the calm command of a leader. The fact that he had offered up his daughter to Tobimaru showed that he had researched the Tsukiji family's inheritance issues well.
親父も舐められてるって気づけよな。親父より先に俺に色目使いやがって。クソヤンキーが。そもそも金髪女の相手なんざ願い下げだぜ。向こうで海兵相手にケツ振ってろってんだ。
Also, arranged marriages, the stuff like that is icky, in my opinion. Tobimaru stopped in his tracks after these muttered complaints. He decided to stop himself before he said anything worse. He walked far enough already anyway. The sun was completely up now. There was nothing more to be gained from wandering mindlessly. He turned his back to the radio tower and began heading home. 1 hour later,
坊ちゃん、お電話です。
Tobimaru had returned to the Tsukiji residence. He took the phone from the housemaid.
もしもし、飛び丸？宗十郎がこんなことになってるんだけど、あんた心当たりない？
Naoko Ozaki was on the line. That was never a good sign.
とまあこういうわけなのよ。
すげえな。安心できる要素が一つもねえ。
Mm-hmm. Sojiro seems caught up on this strange part-time job. I'll wait for you. Okay, no, that was Sojiro seems caught up in a strange part-time job. I'll wait for you in the central park to talk about it. I didn't see the quotation there, and I'm like, why would Sojiro need to be caught up on the part-time job? He's the one working it, but no. No. That was Aoko telling Tobimaru. Gotcha. 10 minutes had passed since he had received this call from Aoko and returned to the park. Tobimaru felt a light migraine coming on after hearing about the situation. The young girl and the old man from before were nowhere to be seen.
そんなこと言われる
Oh,
までも
I'm
なく
sure
分
if
かっ
that
てるわよ。
fucking, really wealthy old man who seems to not really care about his money so much were here, things would get cleared up pretty quick.
私だって人のアルバイトにケチつけたくないけど、どう考えても普通じゃないでしょ。あんた、あいつから何か聞いてない？
悪いな。期待には応えられん。宗十郎はバイトに関しては秘密主義だ。任されているからには他言はできない。とかなんとかな。
そうなのよね。あいつ、他人の事情に関しちゃ缶詰みたいに
He's good at keeping secrets.
ガキ
Good
ガキに
trait
さ
to
れない
have.
限り口割らないのよ。
ほう、それは。青崎にそこまで言わせるとはね。そう。
どういう意味よそれ。
はいはね。言葉通りに受け取ってくれ。お前、基本的に何にだって怒るだろ。そんな女が学校外で世話を焼くなんて、よっぽど気に入ったのかと思ってな。
Well, he's the kind of guy who needs someone watching out over him, otherwise he's gonna walk fucking right into traffic and die.
違うわよ。
Figuratively,
あい
of
つが
course.
問題を起こしたら私たちにまで飛び火するじゃない。こんなの誰がどう見てもただのリスク回避でしょ。
なるほど。公務として見過ごせないってわけか。
Don't look too deep into it.
そうよ。悪い？
いやー、悪かねえさ。むしろ尊敬するよ。ほんと、鉄の生徒会長だぜ。休日だっていうのに、学校の評判を守るためだけに働けるとは。
だけってところを妙に強調するじゃない。まあ、事実その通りだけど。
Ao's glare seemed to suggest she wasn't interested in hearing any objections. This little bluff was rather charming to Tobimaru, who was well aware of Sojiro and Aoko's current living situation.
別にしかしまあそういうことなら副会長として付き合わなくっちゃな。会長は学校のために宗十郎を調査する。
For no other reasons.
俺はそのサポートをしつつ友人として宗十郎を気にかけるってことで。
Tobimaru said he would do as Aoko asked, but for some reason she did not seem satisfied.
じゃあそうと決まれば早速始めますか。青崎のことだから宗十郎の勤め先ぐらい突き止めてんだろ。
Fucking nothing.
住所はどこだよ。
それが尾行したんだけどうまく巻かれちゃって、駅前から2丁目方面に曲がっていたのまでは確実なんだけど。
That's all? Like, you did a real fucking shit job at tailing him. The vice president was used to this. He didn't bother saying anything about her, going as so far as to tail Sojiro.
2丁目か。あの辺りだとパチンコとゲームセンターぐらいしか思い当たらねえな。1日に何万も稼げる店なんざねえぞ。
そうなのよ。というか知ってたら私が試したい気分だわ。
Yeah, like what the fuck? I'd work there
飛び
too.
念のために聞くけど、三崎町にあるお金の稼げる遊び場ってパチンコだけよね。
あ、親父の話じゃ風営法に引っかかる賭場はねえとさ。三崎町の顔役
Everything's
は
above board.
話のわかるおっさんでクリーンな極道を目指してるらしい。パチンコ経営だけで満足してるって話だ。
Got a good thing going, not gonna risk it getting too shady.
うん、それは知ってる。一応確認しただけ。でもそうなるとますます謎ね。
God, fucking the pachinko parlor workaround is so weird to me. It's like you go, you get the balls, you fucking like cash in the balls for prizes, and then you go to the pawn shop like attached to the pachinko parlor and fucking like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sell my prize for some cash.
ギャンブル以外でお金を売買にしていく仕事なんてちょっと思い当たらないんだけど。
ああ、体でも売ってるとしか思えない羽振りの良さだ。一
It's
晩
fucking
いくら
coming out good. There was a slight delay in Aoko's reaction. It took her a few seconds to register what he was saying, but then her jaw dropped.
体ってあんた。
He was seen without a shirt on. He's fucking got it.
ほら、絵画のモデルとかバイト代は高いと聞くぜ。
あ、うん、割はいいって言うよね。美大生ってお金持ちだし。
Uh-huh.
そうよね。それぐらいなら別に。
Yeah, he's just being a, a live figure model or whatever they're called.
まあ、ヌードなのは当然だが。
I mean, they usually are.
結局裸じゃない。
Yeah, but it's different. Without any real information to go on, the conversation was quickly diverging further from the topic at hand. Without knowing the location or type of work, there really wasn't much to talk about.
明日もう一度宗十郎を尾行するしかないわね。二人が。
そうだな。
I'm really bad at fucking hitting the button early.
明日にするか。
Sorry, I'm so fucking sorry. I anticipate the line ending so that way I can hit it and keep a good flow going, but then I end up skipping it, and then I have to end up talking about why I skipped it, and then I end up breaking the flow even more.
宗十郎の羽振りがいいだけじゃどうしようも。
Tobimaru furrowed his brow. Seemed he had thought of something. His expression turned more dire by the second.
どうしたの、飛丸。何か思い出した？
ああ、ちょっとな。そういえば、最近妙に羽振りのいいバカが一人いたなって。そいつ、3日ぐらい前から金に明かして合コンし放題って話なんだが、頭の痛いことに、宗十郎と同じクラスのバカなんだよ、これが。
Well, you know what they say about a fool and his money. There were a few seconds of silence. Aoko nodded. She had put two and two together.
あいつね。
The two immediately left the park to go and find the suspect.
ちゃれーっす。お呼びとあらば補習だろうと即サボり、遊びのお誘いだけは断らない木の実くんです。
Hi, Konomi. Suspect A was apprehended with ease. Akko and Tobimaru were both on the student council, so they knew their target would be at school for remedial lessons. Tobimaru got a girl in Konomi's class to tell him that he had some good news to share outside. Konomi took the bait and came running out to the school's front gate as fast as he could.
ああ、補習中呼び出して悪かったな。
別に悪くないぜ。補習を
Also,
口
nice
実に
gloves,
バイトをサ
Tobimaru.
ボっ
I
て
got a
み
pair
たもの
like
の、
that that
や
I'm
っぱり
wearing
補
right
習も
now.
かったるかったんで、
Not
出席
now,
だけ取
now,
って保
as in I'm
健室で寝
recording,
て
but
ただ
like
けだし。
now, as in this time of year. Like a good pair of driving gloves.
で、ちょうど暇してたところに殿下からコールだろ。合流できると飛んできたわけさ。
Konomi gave a double thumbs up to show he was really ready to have some fun.
そうか。てっきり外で遊び歩いてると思ったが、助かったぜ。お前、
In our
あ
arcade?
あ、あれね。ちょうど昨日ですっからかんよ。ゲーセンでおごりまくるのは気持ちいいけど、後に残るのは虚しさばかりだよな。他校のヤンキーどもと仲良くなっても嬉しくねえっつうが、女っ気皆無というか。なんで女の子はゲーセン嫌がるかね。
God, it's an arcade in the 80s. Fucking nothing but cigarette smoke.
まあ、
Oh,
それも過去の話だけどね。所詮ポッと湧いたあぶくぜに使っちまった金の話をしてもしょうがねえ。俺たちは明るく今の話をしよう。そうだろう、リッチな飛び丸くん。その有り余る財力で今日は僕をどこに連れて行ってくれるんだい？
no freebies.
ああ、その前にこちらの御仁がお前に話があるってよ。
え？
こんにちは、木の実くん。そのあぶく銭の話を聞かせてもらえるかしら。
Cats are out of the bag, bud. Konomi's expression went blank. If anyone could sniff out danger, it was him. And it stank like an impending doom.
僕勉強したいんで戻っていいでしょうか？
No.
もちろん。洗いざらい質問に答え終わったら戻っていいわよ。こっちも時間が惜しいからスムーズな自白を期待するわ。
And you know, if not, it's gonna be tricky to crawl back to class with broken legs.
それであぶく銭って何の話？あなたの月々のバイト料は2万円前後よね。
That's it?
その金額で3日近く
Oh my
も
God,
王様の
you poor
真似事は
man.
難しいと思うのだけど。
It's like, even like in the 80s, $200 a month? It seemed the next logical question would be to ask if he had begun a life of crime.
なんだよ、会長には関係ないだろう。そもそも自白っ
It's
て
bad for
何
the
で
school's
す
image if you get
か？
arrested.
いきなり犯人扱いとか、いくらなんでも横暴じゃねえの？つうか何の事件これ？
まだ事件かどうかは何とも。最近お金の回りがいい生徒がいると聞いて調べ始めたばかりだから。毎日何万円ももらえる仕事なんて学生には目の毒だし、
Mm-hmm.
そういったアルバイトは学校側に報告されてないしね。
You know, you clearly haven't filled out the proper paperwork.
生徒会として危ない仕事だったら注意してあげないと。
Now, this isn't a criminal investigation, it's more bureaucratic. Akko was still smiling as she inched closer to Konomi. She had never spoken to him this nicely after what he had done at the entrance ceremony. That alone was enough to make him think he was in big trouble.
へえ、それは初耳だな。最近金回りがいい生徒ね。
Very convincing.
俺のは違うよ。今まで貯めた貯金をなんとなく使っただけ。クリスマス前だからこう派手に錠剤しとこうかなって、役落とし的に。
普通クリスマス前は貯金するもんだけどな。
Yeah.
ダメよ月地くん、デリカシーが足りないわ。残酷な事実は口にしたくはないけど、木の実くんにはイブを過ごす相手がいないってことでしょ。
Oof.
学友としてそこを追求したらかわいそうよ。
いるわい本命ぐらい。真剣に同情する方がデリカシーに欠けると思うよ俺は。
Going to a nice restaurant with your mom doesn't count.
あら、じゃあイブ用の資金は取ってあるの？
当たり前さ。臨時収入と貯金は別。俺通帳親父に握られてるからさ、予定外の入金とかすぐバレて怒られるん
I
だよ。
mean, fair. You
ど
are in
こで
high
悪さ
school
してきやがったっ
and
て。
clearly have
部屋も
pretty bad
妹がチェックするし
like
さ、
impulse control.
隠し場所とかないんだよ。天井裏に隠したエロ本すら見つけられるんだぜ。万札入った封筒とか見つかってんや
Oh, that's rough,
警察に連れて行かれる。だから速攻使うしかなくってさ。
Konomi laughed awkwardly, as if he was ashamed. He wasn't even aware of just how much he had let slip. Yeah, we didn't need that middle bit there.
臨時収入？さっきと話違うみたい。
Also the
い
end
や
bit.
ーそれはほらバイト先のボーナスみたいな。5000円ぐらい上乗せしてもらったのほんのちょっと、ちょっとだけだって。事件性とかないって。
万札入った封筒について詳しく。
It was in ones. Oh, wait, it's Japan.
話せば話すほど
100 yens
食
are
い違っていく
coins.
ぜ。なんだこれ、孔明の罠か。会長近い。ほらすごい。
Yeah, they gave him an
なんか寒い。
envelope of
し
coins.
かもローファーじゃなくてブーツですか。この間合い封じられた俺の記憶が蘇りそうなんですけど。
Konomi backed away slowly.
木の実くん、時間がないって言ったの、もう一度アピールするべ
Yeah,
きか
time's
しら。
ticking here, bud.
直接体に。
The threat of a kick to the face from Aoko was enough to show him she was serious.
わかった、話すってばもう。臨時収入ってのは本当だよ。新しいバイトがあってさ、そこにしずきを紹介したら先輩にボーナスもらったんだよ。
なんですって。
I mean, that sounds like a pyramid scheme from the outside, but I don't think it is. If Konomi really was working at the same part-time job as Sojiro, she wanted to get as much information from him as she could. This was the exact response she had wanted from Konomi, if not better. Words are hard to read. But she felt dizzy from the implications.
紹介したらボーナスをもらえるって、それ。
It was the oldest trick in the book for pyramid schemes and other unscrupulous business practices.
いや、それがさ、しずきが稼ぎを増やしたいって言うんで、ちょい怪しいバイトを紹介したんだよね。
Kinda shady job. Not the best description to start off with. This went back all the way to before final exams. Konomi told Sojiro about a job he'd heard of from an older student. Since the job required a kind, honest young man, Konomi reluctantly gave up on it for himself and instead passed it on to a friend he thought fit the description.
信じられない。そんな怪しい話にクラスメートを放り出しておいて、まだ友人顔するとか。木の実くん、普段何考えて生きてるの？
友達でも紹介するでしょ、こういうの。むしろ
Yeah, you needed the
本
money.
当の友情ってこういうものよ。しずきも助かって俺も潤うんだからさ。
Just because it
無償
sounds
な友情
shady
とかも
doesn't
う
mean
流
it
行ん
isn't
ないです
above board.
よ。
そりゃそうだけど、そういうのはちゃんとケツ持つ覚悟がある時だけ口にするものじゃないの？
何それ、めんどくさい。会長、男同士の友情に幻想持ちすぎだってば。
Yeah,
基本俺たちみんなバカよ。
some more than others, but
あなたを見てると本気でそう思えてくるから不思議ね。飛丸、あんたよくこんなのとつるんでるわね。
はいはい、そこまで。説教するならまた後でな、青崎。そいつ素でバカだから、本気で構成させたかったら、
the clock's ticking. We don't
一
got
日
time
使
for
うぞ。
this.
いや、足りますよ。ちゃんと一日で構成できます、僕。
Yeah, you
ただ寝ると
relapsed
忘れちゃ
pretty
うだけ
quickly
で。
though.
ほらな。ま、てめえがバカだって自覚している分、気づいてないやつよりは付き合いやすい。この若さで、情けは人のためならずを実践してる野郎はそういねえし。
納得。確かにあんたと気が合いそうな性格ね。
That's just how guys work.
いや、参ったな。 なんだよ二人とも、いくら俺でも照れるじゃん
You're
か。
pretty easy
今
target.
俺のこと褒めてなかった？
褒めてね
You're not supposed to punch down, but man, is it fucking fun.
褒めてないわよ。
うんですよね。
With Konomi leading the way, Aoko and Tobimaru arrived at the part-time job in question. They moved past the new entertainment district in front of the station and into the seedy part of 2nd Street. Aoko pointed to where she had lost Sojiro when she was following him.
この辺りね。木の実くん、そのバイト先ってどこ？
あの辺。
Konomi pointed at a 4-story office building. The entrance was on the other side of the first floor. At first glance, it looked no different from an apartment complex. What do we got here? Honmo no Hikari? Yes, I think that's the fucking kanji for light. The hallway on the first floor continued around to the back of the building. The stairs were located at the beginning of that hallway and were the first thing you saw when entering.
ちょっとそこの路地裏に入りましょう。
Ako hurried off into the back alley where they were not likely to be seen. 3 students stuck out like a sore thumb in the entertainment district like this, especially when one's wearing their fucking uniform.
事務所って言ってたけど、どんな仕事？
俺に聞いてんの？やだな、俺が知ってるのはここまでだぜ。俺だって先輩に言われただけで中のことなんて知らないし、宗十郎をここまで連れてきたら先輩が紹介料くれただけだし。
The top suspect just admitted that he had no further details. Osuke Konomi, co-defendant, or perhaps who they thought may have been the main culprit, was really no more than an annoying witness.
参った。ここまで無責任だといっそすがすがしい。ところで木の実くん、西部劇とか見たことある？役に立たない情報提供者の末路とかご存知かしら？
Oh, any westerns is in the movies. I thought you were saying like westerners, and I'm like, what? I'm like, what does white people have to do with this?
俺映画って苦手なんだよ。
I know that
でも
the
セーラー服と
fucking
機
white
関銃
people
な
are
ら
the
見た。
root of all
主
evil
演
and
目当て
whatnot,
で。
but like, come on.
そう？残念ね。夕日のガンマンぐらいは見とけばよかったのに。ま、どうあれ。
Gotta watch
情
all
報
three though.
提供者は悲惨な死を遂げるんだけど。
やる気満々だぜこの女。殿下、こんな教授ほったらかしにしちゃまずいって。首輪とかつけないと
Yeah,
さ。
she's already passed that collar off to someone else.
って築地？なんだよしけた顔しちゃって。あのビルが何か知ってんの？
まずいな。知ってるも何も。あれは最近やってきた詐欺まがいのセールス屋だ。英会話セットの販売と何ら変わらねえ。
Ako was sad to hear that the truth was as bad as she thought. Konomi seemed confused as well.
それ、確かなの、飛び丸。
ああ、親父の秘書さんから聞いた話だ。間違いない。表向きは新興宗教なんだが、
Oh god.
やってることは羽毛布団の販売だとさ。じいさまばあさま相手に質の低い羽毛布団を高額で売りつけているらしい。
What is it with fucking Japan and cults?
あの事務所も貸し事務所だ。1ヶ月もこの町で稼いだらあっさりドローンするつもりだろう。間違いなく宗十郎は騙されてるな。最高のカモだろ、詐欺師にとっちゃ。
She's fucking making bank though. Tobimaru slumped his shoulders in defeat. Aoko, however, was already in full-on battle mode.
よし、潰す。その後木の実は学校の旗のところに吊るす。
え？直？今のセリフだと縄じゃなくて首？脊髄にぐっさり？
You'll
殺
live.
人？
いや待てよ、
Turns
青
out
崎。
people really don't die
そ
when they're
れだと
killed.
辻褄が合わん。宗十郎は大金を持ってたんだよな。それじゃあカモとは呼べねえぞ。
そういえばそうだった。
I mean, you could be getting a cut.
木の実くんの発言に気を取られすぎて、あ
Making
の大金のことを
he's
忘れ
the
てた。
fucking face of them going around making the sales. You know, skimming a little off the top.
あれってことはまさか。
ああ、騙されている側だったら金は減っていく。だが増えてるなら話は別だ。考えたくねえが、宗十郎のやつはセールス側に回ってるんじゃないか。
I mean, unknowingly, most likely, but possibility.
信じられない。宗十郎が詐欺グループの一員になっているです。
はあ、まさかしずきに騙されるようなやつはいねえよ。だいたい嘘つけないじゃんあいつ。羽毛布団を売りさばくとか絶対無理だって。
だから宗十郎自身、それが悪質な詐欺だと気づいてないんじゃないか。
It's a perfect cover.
あいつはあいつで心からいいものだと思って売ってるんだよ。真心の塊で。
ほう、なるほど、そりゃ納得だ。あの純真さんがお年寄りに大人気ってわけだな。やるじゃんしずき。今度会ったら俺もお裾分けしてもらった。
木の実くんの構成は今後の課題として、どうしよう飛丸、もう少し様子を見た方がいいと思う。仮にしずきくんが関わってたら彼にも詐欺罪が適用される。まだ未成年だけど。
あくまで従業員だから実刑はかからねえとは思うが、敵さんはあれで食ってる連中だ
It's
か
not
ら
like
な。
anything he's doing is illegal.
宗十郎が雇われた時の契約書の内容次第だ。
そうよね。下手したら宗十郎自身もう入会してるかもしれない。
Akko looked a lot more cool-headed now. Tobimaru had been serving with her on the student council for over a year. Knew exactly what she was thinking at a time like this.
入会していたら脱会は難しいな。あいつ本人にその気
What
が
is
な
this
く
like
て
a
も
fucking Yakuza side plot going on right now?
それで青崎、どこまでやる気だ？
営業停止は最低ライン。
And I meant the video
思考
game.
は自由だって言うなら、よその土地でやってもらうまでよ。
だろうな。そんな顔してるぜお前さん。で宗十郎はどうする？とりあえず辞めさせるか？
当然。けどもう彼だけの問題じゃないわ。そもそもうちの生徒を雇おうとした時点で私たちの問題よ。
Oh, you're kind of making it your problem, but hey,
しずき
you
く
do
んは
you.
関係なしであの事務所潰すから。
いいけどな。厄介だぞあの手の連中は。サラ金と同じで法律上は何の問題もない。
Scummy, but legal.
警察じゃせいぜい厳重注意レベル。下手に商売の邪魔をすれば損害賠償と言い出しかねえ。せいてはことを何とやらだ。
分かってる。まずは会社の概要と社長の素性、構成員の数を調べながら被害者の洗い出し。
Akko suddenly stopped talking in the middle of her detailed plans.
どうした青崎？
Tobimaru noticed right away what Akko had spotted. Akko was looking at a crowd on the street. Really? I don't see anyone. A familiar young man wearing a coat was walking through the lively second street. He walked confidently up to the office building and disappeared inside. He hadn't seemed to notice the worried trio watching from the shadows. The young man, clearly Sojiro Suzuki, had just started his shift, still oblivious to the severity of the situation he was in. Akko was shaking with rage.
待って、落ち着け青崎。気持ちはわかるが、あいつに悪気はだな。
ああもうなんか無性に頭きた。
Akko raised her head up in fury and clenched her fists. She was no longer her usual calm and collected self. Really? Her usual? A fucking Prux X to doubt. This was the student council president who ruled with an iron fist, fueled by her own righteous indignation.
飛び丸 応援団の美濃先輩に連絡取って、今すぐこわもての団員20人ほど集めてきて。喧嘩になるかもしれないから、それなりの装備込みでって。
What, fucking calling up the rugby team? Akko darted out into the main street as she barked her orders. She looked like an esteemed general charging into battle against an enemy squadron.
ミノって応援団の
The
団
cheer
長だ。
squad!
しかも20人って、お前一体何する気だ？
Oh yeah, the fucking intimidating cheer squad.
決まってるでしょ。殴り込みよ。まずは法律面での制裁からなんて考えが甘かった。学生騙して私服を肥やすような悪党に
Hell
は
yeah.
物理的な制裁で十分よ。何よ本物の光って。こんなしけた街で羽毛布団とか売って
Hey,
る
I was
の。
right. It was the kanji for light. I'm so smart.
待て、落ち着け。さっきまでの平和的なプランはどこに行った？悪党を暴力で押さえつけていいのは警察だけだ。
Oh, it just means you gotta go in there,
踊りやが
fucking
れ。
crack some skulls, and then get the fuck out before the cops show.
何よ、その警察が使えないから私たちが出張るんじゃない。文句あるなら代案出せ。
文句はね、まず落ち着けって話だ。
Yeah, form a better plan before you just rush into headlong.
そもそも代案なんざ立てるまでもね。お前さん、さっきはどんな手を考えてたか口にしてみろ。まずは法律面での制裁をとか言ってただろ。
そんなのあんただって分かってるでしょ。あの会社の調査と並行して詐欺の被害に遭った人たちを探して、私たちが間に入って連盟を作る。
How would you do that?
ご老人ばかりを標的にしてるのは、おじいさんたちは世間の事情に疎いと見くびってるからだろうし。
It's old people's own fault for getting scammed.
なんでおじいさんたちだけじゃわからない問題を私たちでフォローしてあげれば、被害者の会ぐらいは作れるわ。
よーし、その調子だ。確かに一人一人で掛け合っても連中にとっちゃ痛くも痒くもね。
Good old class,
横のつながりを作るのは
class
大事だから
action
な。
lawsuit.
それで契約をなかったことにして取られた金を取り戻すか？
それは無理でしょうね。
Yeah, the fucking money's probably already spent.
契約書は絶対よ。頭くるけど書かれたことは覆らない。今からできるのはこれ以上の被害を抑えることだけ。ローンの解約、入会の破棄、それと可能な限り金銭を回収する。
Hell yeah.
羽毛布団ならクーリングオフが適用
Fucking
さ
shake
れ
him
るは
down.
ず。全ての返品は無理でもやるに越したことはないわ。
上出来だ。それで行こうぜ、青崎。何もお前さんが悪役になる必要はね。せっかくの法治国家だ。平和的に解決しよう。
それはそうだ
I
けど、
don't think Alco does
こ
many
んなの
things
部
peacefully,
外者
but
だから言えること
you
よ。
should know this by now.
詐欺に遭った人たちからすれば取られたものは取られたままなんだし。
それを気に病むのはそれこそお前の仕事じゃねえ。まずはクマリンに連絡しよう。あいつ商店街の娘だからな。被害者の調査に向いているだろう。
小鹿にあんまり荒ごとに巻き込みたくないけど仕方ないか。 OK、 私の方から連絡する。飛丸は美濃先輩への電話お願い。
あ、こっちの話なら応援団
Yeah, it's
必
good
要
to
ね
have
え
a
だろ。
backup.
必要だってば。脅し要員だけじゃなくおじいさん間の連携に走ってもらわなくちゃ。先輩たちいかつい顔して優しいでしょ。クーリングオフは書
Why
面
is
に
your
起こすこと
school's
が
cheer
大前
squad
提。
scary?
書類に弱いおじいさんたちの代わりに先輩たちに代筆してもらうのよ。
なるほど、そりゃいい。数の暴力だな。連中も20人からの返品は夢にも思ってねえだろうさ。
Alco and Tobimaru both nodded in agreement. Konomi had been completely left to the wayside in this whole discussion.
なあ、クーリングオフってなんだよ。
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with the term.
俺聞いたことねえんだけど。
買った商品を返品して購入時の金額を返してもらうことよ。日本じゃ10年ぐらい前から正式に採用されてるけど木の実くん聞いたことない？
いや全く。ただの返品と違うの？
Yeah.
同じだけどこっちは国が後ろ盾になってくれるわ。
Okay.
本物の光が法を盾にするならこっちも法で突き破るだけよ。おじいさんたちには馴染みのない話だろうから、そこは私たちが代わりにやるってわけ。
In reality, only a very narrow range of products were applicable for this satisfaction period law, and it was currently unclear if those handled by the light of truth fell under that umbrella. If it was not applicable under this law, Hauko would have to think of another plan. However, not 30 minutes later, that worry would vanish when they got the chance to examine an actual quilt sold by the light of truth. Once Aoko had an established plan, she will not waver from it. They had made a cafe with a... They had made a cafe? What? They had made a cafe with a view of the building? What? Okay, they had made a cafe with a view of the office building, their command center. And, after they got together others from the student council for backup, their one-day blitz tactic plan began.
そうと決まれば迅速にね。二人とも連絡係よろしく。サクッと今日中に決着をつけましょう。
Tobimaru sighed at the thought of trying to complete everything in a day's time. Konomi, on the other hand, wondered why he had been dragged in to help. Yeah, doesn't he have, like, fucking classes to go to? Unless you're gonna fucking get him out of, like, getting in trouble for that, but fucking doubt. Although Tobimaru had gotten Aoko to abandon the idea of a physical fight, Aoko knew that the contact plan would be difficult to pull off and continued to research other options. There were many conditions that needed to be met for this plan to actually work. The major issue was the amount of time elapsed from the time of purchase. For consumable goods, that time for a legal return was 8 days. If there were 30 or so victims, this would probably only be applicable to 1 or 2 of them. If that was the case, they needed to look for some other consumer protection besides the satisfaction clause.
何々？安価なものを不当な金額で売りつけた場合、暴利行為として公序良俗違反で契約が無効となる場合がある。ただし、公序良俗を根拠とするって。何よこれ、ほとんど売る側の勝ちじゃない。疑わしきは罰せずが法廷の基本だし、水かけ論じゃこっちが不利だ。
It was a difficult situation. They wouldn't be able to stand up to an experienced group of scam artists with their limited knowledge of the law. They needed to fight fire with fire, or in this case, a scam with a scam.
騙し取られた金額分だけ美味しい話で騙し取るって話か。
To do that, they needed more intel. Naka was studying the material they collected for something they could use.
お待たせ。とりあえず追加候補10人分の住所と布団の現物持ってきたわよ。
サンキュー。さすがくまり。本気出せば仕事の早いこと早いこと。
Naka took the list of victims from the student council secretary, Kochika Kumari, and immediately contacted Tobimaru on his pager. Oh god, fucking pager. Although pagers could only receive short messages like, call me, they were a powerful means of communication in an age where people relied on public telephones. Tobimaru called the cafe to give Aoko an update and hear about the list of new discovered victims.
被害者の会はできたのね。仕切りは青山くんにやらせて。一応、相手への牽制として名刺も作ってくれると助かる。事務局はほら、文化祭の時に作った偽団体あるじゃない？あそこの電話番号にしておいて。電話番は山城先生に頼み込むわ。
You sure you can get him on board? The victims' advocacy group was currently at just over 10 members. The group's aims was to help victims of the scam get their money back and remove themselves from the light of truth. Some of the victims had not even realized they had been scammed, so, with some explanation, about 10 more members were added. It helped that it was polite, young, well-dressed students who were giving them this information. The elderly generally seemed more accepting of anyone who was around the age of their grandchildren.
にしても、よくここまで調べたもんだわ。否定の20人なんてあっという間だったわね。
あんたの言う条件が分かりやすかったから。60過ぎのご老人で一人暮らしで
町内会に入っていない人を探せばよかったんだし、やってることは本物の光の販売員と一緒。
Find the outliers that are easy pickings.
でもこんなんでなんとかなる話じゃないと思うけど、結局のところ抗議するのが関の山じゃ。青崎、ちょっと何薄気味悪い顔で笑ってるの
She
よ。
makes weird faces all the time. It's not really that fucking important. Alko looked up after being called out to by her friend.
いやー、面白いもん見つけちゃって。成果の乏しい戦いになると思ってたけど、風向きが変わったわ。ほら、見て
What?
クマ。この
Okay. Alko showed her the product label sewn onto the down quilt. On there was a tag that looked like the Japanese Industrial Standards logo. Japanese industrial standards help maintain the quality of industrial products in Japan. Products with this mark were required to be produced in accordance with the Industrial Standards Law. Oh, so if it's not, they're using it illegally, and that's a pretty solid, thing to throw at them in court.
あれ JLS？ そう、こうなると契約書が逆に武器になる。百戦錬磨かと思ったけど、実際はウサギしか相手にしない素人ってこと。ええ、うまく話を持っていけば全額返済も夢じゃないわ。
Alko took a seat, still grinning from ear to ear. She didn't ring Tobimaru's pager. Instead, she dialed a different number on the red phone while humming to herself. Alko heard the familiar ringtone through the receiver.
青崎、築地に連絡入れるんじゃないの？作戦が変わったって。それは後。今大事なのは交渉役を誰にするかよ。私や飛丸じゃさすがに貫禄不足だしね。こっちが有利になったとしてもまだ状況は五分だし。会話次第じゃひっくり返されるだろうから、被害者の会の代表はそれはもう少年のひん曲がった悪魔でないと。それ
Wait,
あ
you're
んた
fucking
のこと
roping
だと思うん
Alice
だ
into this?
けど、違うの？いえいえ、こういうのは社会的立場のある大人じゃないと務まりません。安心してくまり、ぴったりのやつを知ってるから。
Do you now?
詐欺師には詐欺師ってね。この町には人を言いまかすのだけが仕事のやつって言っちゃったりするのよ。今日もやることなくて暇してるだろうし、たまには働いてもらわないと。彼女にかかっちゃサラ金だろうが教祖だろうが、1時間で精神崩壊。裸足で山に逃げ込むわ。
I'll be honest, I have no idea who you're talking about. Alko kept the phone receiver at her ear as she delivered these cutting remarks. The ringing tone had long since gone silent.
もしもし、まさかとは思いますが、今の話は私のことでしょうか、青子さん。
Well, this ain't Alice. Oh god, is this fucking what's her nuts when they went to the church? That Hanazawa that totally isn't her name? An eloquent woman's voice could be heard from the phone's earpiece. Ako innocently said her greetings and smiled like a hunter who had just gotten their prey to take the bait. We don't really know much about her. She had like fucking 5 minutes on screen and then
常
ditched.
々思っていましたが、あなたには年長者
Ah,
の
yes,
敬意が足りていない
the
ようで
greatest
す
scammers of
ね。
all time, the Catholic Church.
Huh?
Tobimaru and Konomi had returned from the task and stood there wide-eyed. The person Alko had invited to the cafe looked so out of place that it was a shock to everyone.
はーい、ゆいかさん。わざわざ来てもらって助かるわ。事情は電話で説明したけど、もう少し詳しく説明する？
結構です。本物の光のことは先ほど律香から報告を受けましたから、あなたに享受していただく事柄は一つもありません。
ありゃま、ご機嫌斜め。よかった。そのテンションのまんま勝ち込みお願いね。
Go
一般人が
fucking
一人や二人。
deliver
ゆいかさ
divine
んが本
justice
性を出
upon
せ
them.
ば、睨むだけでそっとさせられるでしょ？
そうなの？このお姉さん、間教会のシスターさんだよね。俺密かに憧れてたんですけど。
You go to church?
いや、そんな場合じゃねえ。どうも、木南宝介っす。青崎さんとはあんまり仲良くありません。
Konomi was clearly trying to earn points by showing that he was also not that friendly with Aoko. Sister Yuika gave him an angelic smile
こ
back.
れはご丁寧に。間協会で装飾を務める須瀬ゆいかです。はじめまして、大介さん。
いやー、すんげえ、本当にシスターだよ、シスター。会長、とんでもない
Yeah,
隠
which
し玉連
means
れてき
you
た
have
な。
no shot because she's a nun.
あれでもゆいかさんに何してもらうの？いや、俺はいてくれるだけで嬉しいけど。
まあだいたい想像できるが。はじめまして、シスターユイカ。三崎高校生徒会副会長築地飛丸です。
Tobimaru didn't look so well. Perhaps he had figured out where this course of events was heading. The JLS label was indeed illegal. This discovery made Aoko realize how they could get the victim's money back and run the light of truth out of town completely. Sister Yuika was her solution.
てっきり証拠に物を言わせて訴えられたくなければ示談で済ませろ、全額返して出ていけって話かと思ったが、恐ろしい女だぜ。追い出すだけじゃなくスカンピンにして放り出そうって腹か。
What, convince them to make a donation to their local church, you know?
は？
Absolve their souls of sin.
何？美人なだけじゃなくシスターさんってそんな権利持ってるの？
シスターさんがじゃなくてユイカさんの人間力と言うべきね。はい、これ被害者の会からの連名書。一応うちの応援団の先輩たちも待機してるけど、何人か連れていく？
そうですね。逆上して手を挙げられては後片付けが面倒ですので、
Okay.
抑止力として5人ほど。あとは青子さんが同行してくれるのでしたら、私としては不満はありません。
Yeah, you're good at having a fight.
え？どういうこと？もしかしてシスターさんが話つけに行くの？会長？
いいのいいの。ユイカさんはこう見えて荒事の専門家なんだから。ねえ、ユイカさん。
あなたほどではありませんが。
Okay.
いいでしょう。今回は利益が一致します。あの事務所の方々が違法を働いているのは事実ですから。
Still don't know where you're going with this, but let's see.
罪には罰を。善良な人々を、特に私たちの同胞を苦しめた手合いには相応の痛みが必要です。
さすが泣く子も黙る鬼のシスター。期待してるわ。昔から商売敵を潰すのは得意だものね。
言われるまでもありません。一つの土地に二つの教えがあっては迷惑です。
Though the two continued to antagonize each other, they entered the office building fighting for the same team. The 5 burly members of the cheer team filed in behind them. They had left behind a glum Tobimaru and a completely clueless Konomi. Same bud.
わかんねえ。青崎、あの美人さんに何やらせる気なんだよ。
Spill the beans, Tobimaru. Elucidate us.
そりゃお前口にはできない残虐行為だろ。相手の弱みを握ったらとことん叩きのめすのが青崎だからな。違法販売をネタにして契約解除をさせた後に告訴するって流れ。訴えるのはシスターの役目だな。立場上学生である青崎よりシスターの方がお題目が立つ。
Yes, but how? I'm failing to get the connection between, you know, a member of the church and
連中
fucking
貯め
whatnot.
た財産根こそぎ取られるだけで済めばいいが。
After taking a few deep breaths, Tobimaru also headed towards the office building.
天下も事務所に行くの？怖くない？
行かねえ。
But she also didn't appear to be the fucking
俺の
Hanazawa
はちょ
girl,
っとした野
so...
暮用だ。 てめえも補習に戻れよ。今日の礼はまた改めてくれてやるから。
バ
Guess
カ。
Aoko just
補
knows a
習
lot
なん
of
てもう
people.
終わってるじゃんか。気がつけばもうすぐ夕方だぜ、夕方。楽しかった。
Yeah, got him out of class.
あっという間の半日だった。
Tobimaru waved goodbye and disappeared into the office building.
は
Konomi thought it was strange since Tobimaru had just said he wasn't going in there. However, he left as well after hearing the noise that sounded like glass breaking on the third floor of the office building. Wise man never courts danger, as they say. The discussion ended without any major issue. The inside of the office was mostly untouched, only the center line of desks had been pulverized by Sister Yuika. Things had been resolved peacefully without any bloodshed. The office had been conquered in about an hour, and Aoko was now surveying it. A large desk had gone right through the window, flung through the air with a single swing of Sister Yuika's hand. The sales staff were shaking in the corner like they had just seen the devil incarnate. Sister Yuika brought in 5 members of the cheer team to seize the office's permits and other important documents.
あれ
Unfortunately, the one thing Aoko was looking for was nowhere to be found. She went to ask the sales staff, still quivering in the corner of the room.
ちょっと3時間ぐらい前ここに人畜無害そうなの来なかった？ビルから出てきてないからまだ中にいると思うんだけど。
There's also a chance that this isn't where he's working. You know, there tends to be more than one business in a big building like this. Everyone shook their heads no. Nobody had seen a student who fit that description in the office. Hako was looking even more confused at this point.
でもまあ。
She was still happy that she'd done a good deed here today. Tobimaru entered the office building and headed straight down the hall. He glanced at the stairs in front of him as he walked by, passing several tenants and headed towards the emergency exit at the back of the building. Tobimaru knew this geography of 2nd Street well. If his memory served correctly, there were some old one-story houses behind this building that had been around forever. They were old tin-roofed rental houses that stood against the tides of time. Though overshadowed by the recent trend of 2-story apartments, they were still there, alive and kicking. At the back of the office building, there was a river of processing wastewater. A river for processing wastewater, that sounds gross. Beyond the river and a fence, there were many one-story houses. Next to the building, there was a bridge that crossed over to the other side. It was a shortcut only neighborhood locals would know about.
なるほど。大したショートカットだ。地図なんて当てになんねえな。
As Tobimaru walked towards the building, he saw a familiar face exit one of the old tin-roofed houses. The young man was wearing a coat and was without a doubt Sojiro Suzuki.
明日もまた来ておくれね。
Sojiro crossed the bridge while the old woman who resided there saw him off.
あれ副会長
ああ、奇遇だな、色男。
The two exchanged glances as they crossed paths on the bridge. Sojiro looked fairly spent. That was all Tobimaru needed to see. Sojiro's new job was a lot harder than working for any scam artists. They both stopped to talk on the footbridge.
あの辺りに親戚でもいんのか？
いや、いない。一つ手に紹介されて、おばあさんの話し相手をしていただけだ。
For some reason, Sojiro readily revealed what he had refused to tell Aoko.
そんな気軽に話していいのか？守秘義務とかありそうだが。
いや、秘密にしなくちゃいけない話でもないんだ。ただ、話しちゃいけない気がしただけで。飛び丸には出てくるところを見られたし、正直、誰かに言いたい気持ちはあった。
Yeah, but how you getting all the money out of this? Leaning on the rail of the footbridge, Tobimaru urged him to go on. Turned out that Sojiro's story was nothing out of the ordinary. His new part-time job was to be a home helper for the old one-story house. The resident was a widow who had been left alone after her son moved off to the city.
初めはただのお手伝いだったんだけどね。
He spoke with a troubled, slightly regretful smile. Maybe he was ashamed of something he'd done? There was a tinge of darkness behind the wry, tormented smile on his face. Tobimaru found himself surprised at his own thoughts and slapped himself lightly on the cheek. This was his way of punishing himself. Wasn't sure why his imagination was running so wild now.
珍しく浮かない顔だが。あれか？ 出て行った息子さんとやらに文句があるのか？介護が必要なおふくろさんを放って好き勝手に暮らしていることに。
That's life.
どうだろう。確かにおかしな話だとは思う。けど俺はその息子さんを責める気にはなれない。だって
Sojiro stopped himself mid-sentence. He didn't think that the son hated his mother as much as he did the town. He had probably just found somewhere better to live and moved away. Sojiro swallowed those bitter words.
お手伝いの料金は初めに全部もらってたんだ。今月だけという話なのに10万円は高すぎると思う。
He trailed off, muttering that he really didn't need that much money. The old woman had thanked him for his honesty. That was the part of Sojiro's appeal, most likely. In a matter of days, the old woman put all her trust into Sojiro and treated him like her own grandson.
ああ、それは素直に嬉しいんだけど、問題は。
She always saw him off with a smile and asked him to return tomorrow. Every time he left, she gave him a stack of cash in the hope that he wouldn't forget her.
あ？それだけで大金もらってたのか？
うん。お孫さんの代わりをしてほしいと言った。あなたは信じられるから、これで孫のように振る舞ってくれって。
That's...
なんだそりゃ。少しも信じてねえよそれ。金で動く孫がいるか。そりゃヘルパーと変わらねえ。
emotional investment in it is a little...
いや、おばあさんはヘルパーさんにはお金は払わないと言った。信頼できないから。あのおばあさんが信じられるのはお金だけなんだ。
She seemed to have some quirks about her, probably because she'd been living alone for so long. But at this point, she had lost all faith in the goodwill of humankind. To her, the bonds of a family were nothing but a fantasy. After being cast aside by her own family for so many years, the only thing that remained faithful to her was the money she'd saved. Over time, this led her to developing a strange complex. For her, the money she scrimped and saved, the last thing she could rely on, was the only way she could conceive of keeping someone in her life.
バカらしい。それって結局金で雇った他人じゃねえか。孫の代わりとは言えねえな。
それはおばあさんが誰よりも分かってるよ。でも偽物だと分かっていてもそれぐらいしか信じられるものはなかったんだ。おばあさんにとって家に寄りつかなくなったお孫さんは今一番欲しいものだから。その代償として彼女が一番信用できるものを真心として渡してくれたんだ。
Has she tried calling her son and be like, hey, can you bring the family to visit sometime? She wasn't buying him though. She just trusted Sojiro from the bottom of her heart and was thanking him the only way she knew how. She didn't realize how that looked from other people's perspectives.
また厄介な事情に首突っ込んだもんだ。まあ、あんまり深く思い詰めるな。いい話じゃねえか。命より金が大事だった
Yeah, if it makes her happy, then
今に
so
なって
what?
思い出の方に転んだわけだ。
そうかな。
It was obvious from Sojiro's expression that all this still weighed heavily on him.
なんだよ、煮え切らねえな。どうせお前さんのことだ。もらった金は一銭も使ってねえんだろ。
Yeah, probably not. All the shoebox under his bed.
いずれ年金も底をつく。そうなった時に丸々返すつもりだから、青崎にも黙ってたんじゃないのか？
なんで飛丸がそんなこと知ってるんだ？
まあ、いや、
Yeah,
なんとなく。
it's a pretty you thing to do. Tobimaru decided it was best not to tell Sojiro about all the trouble they went through for him today. He knew Aoko would only make him regret it if he did later.
そっか。でもこの
Yeah,
話
she'd
の
get
一
real
番難
fucking
しいとこ
cindery
ろは
about it.
飛丸。その人にはお孫さんはいなかったんだ。
Oh.
は？
After a few moments of surprise, Tobimaru let out a sigh. He understood. being widowed with a son who'd moved into the city and grandchildren who never visit. That was a normal, full, and rich life. Sometimes, however, a person's dreams were all that kept them going. The bottom is limitless. For every tragic life, there is another even more tragic than that.
時々油断すると思うんだ。この街について。みんな幸福そうに見えるのに、裏を覗くとそうでもないのはなんでだろうって。なんか街全体に騙されてるみたいだ。
With so many people gathered around, you really get the full spectrum of the experiences of life. Only issues is, with spectrums, there's one end. There might be a good end, but, there's still the other end, which is a little less good. There's a Tobimaru thing there that I forgot to read. Tobimaru leaned over the railing and looked down at the bustling town below. In the end, Sojiro's worry stemmed from his feelings lost in the environment. The woman who walked through life alone into old age. Tobimaru struggled with being antagonized by his entire family. Those are both personal matters. Sojiro's problems stemmed from the nebulous entity of the town itself. For every bit of progress made through modernization, there are also some people left in growing misfortune. It didn't matter whether they were unequal in wealth or compassion, it was all the same. The larger a town grows, the harder it becomes for the weak to thrive. For a young man who spent his life in the countryside where everyone helped each other, it was hard to understand.
Sojiro, お前、この町は好きか？
まだわからない。そういう飛び丸は？
まあ似たようなもんだ。好き嫌いも半々で、たまに何もかもどうでもよくなる時はある。
that's just how it is.
だがまあ、お前さんとは真逆だな。俺はこの町のおかげで、てめえの悩みなんざ無視できる。ここに比べりゃマシだってな。空虚であろうと、この忙しさ、節操のなさは捨てたもんじゃねえってな。
ここに比べたらマシ？
違うな。マシというよりはありって感じか。バイトしてればたまに思うだろ。街ってのは隙間を作らないように回ってるんだ。欠席にしろ空席にしろ、空きができたらすぐに埋められるようにできている。当たり前のようで、こいつはよくできた共同体なんだよ。昨日までは誰でもなかった他人が、明日には必要な隣人になってるかもしれない。昨日まではなかった街角に新しい建物ができていることもある。まるで毎日が切った縫ったの大手術だ。それでもうまく回ってることに真剣に感心する。
Yeah?
本当に何かの弾みで思うんだよ。俺はてめえだけで生きてるんじゃなくて、どうでもいい誰かのどうでもいい頑張りのおかげでこうして管負けてるんだ。
No man's an island and all that.
持ちつ持たれつだ。そういう巡り合わせを成立させているだけでもどんなバランスなんだって呆れるわけだ。
Just as the mountains are alive, so is the city. Tobimaru didn't seem to like the way that living creatures had manifested itself. But even still.
そうか。敬意を払ってるんだな、飛び。
まあ、照れくさいが、そういうこと。
As someone who's born and raised in the city, Tobimaru was thankful that complete strangers were able to help each other out.
つうか、お前さんは贅沢すぎる。初めから好きなところに住めるやつなんていねえだろ。生まれる場所は選べねえしな。単純な話、自分が住むって決めたところを好きになるしかねえってことだ。
Tobimaru gave Sojiro's back a hard slap. It made Sojiro straighten up his posture and snap him out of his slump a bit.
でも飛び丸、そこに住むって決めても好きになれなかったらどうするんだ？
I don't know, go somewhere else.
どうしても好きになれないやつは違う土地に行けばいい。嫌なら逃げてもいいんだよ。放浪するのも人生だぜ。
People aren't trees rooted to the ground. They can just get up and go. Sojiro was so impressed with Tobimaru's words he couldn't speak. He gave him a new perspective. It wasn't just the words, "Don't be scared to run away from a bad place." What had really left a strong impression was Tobimaru's confidence. Although he had been born in this town, he spoke freely of abandoning it.
飛び丸から逃げるなんて言葉が出るとは思わなかった。
逃げる先があるなら逃げてもいいだろって話。そりゃ勝ちとか成功とかそういう言葉に固執するのも悪くはねえさ。富と名声はいいもんだしな。だが俺にはどうも勝ち続けるっていうのは固まるってことに見える。息苦しくてしょうがない。青崎みたいにがんじがらめになっても突き進むパワーもねえしな。心情は軽い方がいいだろうよ。
Yeah, sometimes it's fine to just cut your losses.
人生は軽い方がいいのか？
いや、軽いとか手堅いとかそういうんじゃなくて、俺はもっとこうロマンあふれるっつうか。
Yeah, not everything needs to be so serious all the time. Tobimaru referred to his brow to his inability to find the proper words. What he wanted was simple.
そうだな。俺はきっと笑える人生が送りたいんだ。
That was how he saw life. Tobimaru tried his best to put into words his thoughts, hoping his friend would find them useful.
漫才師か？
Not quite. Tobimaru's shoulders slumped in disappointment. But even so,
いや、そんなもんか。
yeah, why not?
実際。
If it helps you accept it, sure, think of it that way. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that Sojiro wasn't really wrong. There was no end to human desire. The perfect life was an unattainable dream. The only way to really win was to be able to say that with your dying breath that you had truly enjoyed living.
たく、青崎の影響かね。考えなしのバクとかっていうの。あいつ、ボニー&クライドとか大好きなんだろうな。
That one's probably going to go over Sojiro's head there, bud. Tobimaru tiredly scratched his head. Never would have said something like this last year, considering how pessimistic he had been then.
ともかくだ。他人の事情にいちいち落ち込んでるようじゃ日が暮れるぜ。いや、実際もう暮れかけてるけどな。とんだ道草だ。
そうか。引き止めてすまなかった。飛び丸は他に用事が？
俺もおとなしく家に帰るとするか。そっちも日が落ちる前に帰れよ。何をしていたか聞かれたら隠さず事情は説明しとけ。その話、お前が思ってるほどひでえ話じゃねえから。
And I'll help keep Alko away from your fucking money. She'll feel bad about touching it. Sojiro frowned and fell silent. He still hadn't come to terms with his arrangement with that old woman yet. If he hadn't gone there in the first place, she might not have felt like anything was missing from her life. And that feeling of regret was exactly why he wanted to talk to someone.
お前、残酷なことをしたと思ってんだろ。ばあさんの人生に今からじゃ取り戻せないものを見せつけた。どうかな。
Sojiro was stunned into silence. Tobimaru knew exactly what Sojiro regretted.
そりゃ違う。思い上がりだぜ、宗次郎。いいか、そのばあさんも自分は人生に失敗したなんて思ってんなら、今の自分にできることをさせればいい。幸い金は腐るほどあるんだろ。
She's forking out that much cash, yeah.
なら、思いっきり人助けをさ
Her
せて
fucking
みろ。
husband must have had a good life insurance
金で
policy.
救える不幸なんざ山ほどあるだろ。で、ばあさんがどんなもんだと胸を張れたんなら、それは間違いなくいい仕事だ。
それはおばあさんの苦しみを解決していない。
Yeah, it's not your job to do that.
解決できねえ問題は放っておけ。そのばあさんには今他に解決できる問題があるんだから、それでいいじゃねえか。
Yeah, do what you can, don't worry about the rest.
悪いけどお金は これから世のため人のため自分のために使うから返しておくれとなったらばばあさんの勝ち。偽物の孫なんざよりよっぽどいい生きがいに目覚めたわけだな。しかしこれで満足したから残りはやっぱりもらっておくれ。
Well, that's her choice to make.
といえばお前さんの勝ち。ばあさんにとってはやっぱり孫の方がいいってことで、そん時は大手を振って大金持って帰りやがれ。
なるほど。
Sojiro clapped his hands together. He's finally able to accept these conditions as fair.
すまない。ありがとう、飛び丸。
His smile was no longer bitter. He would do whatever he could to help that old woman choose to assist others in need. Tobimaru thought that such unwavering confidence was the sign of true freedom.
気にするな。礼を言うならお互い様だ。じゃあな、宗次郎。休みは。
Thought he was done. His goodbye wasn't the friendliest, but Sojiro didn't mind. He ran home with a big smile on his face. Tobimaru's smile was a bit less carefree as he left the footbridge. The time was 4:30 in the evening. Night would soon fall over the midwinter landscape.
Tadaima. 今夜はまた一段と冷えるね。
Naoko and Alice were both in the drawing room when he returned. Neither of them had eaten dinner yet. Naoko looked displeased. She always looks like that. Alice sat uncomfortably on the sofa.
あれ、もしかしてこっちの帰りを待っていたのか？
Alice quietly affirmed his assumption. Naoko vehemently denied it.
青崎、俺の気のせいならいいんだけど、なんだか昨夜以上にどうかしてないか？
Sojiro had gotten slightly better at reading the room, but he still had difficulty choosing the right words. I'll show you worked up, was what she wanted to say, but she stopped herself. She wasn't actually all that angry with Sojiro, but
どうかしてるの、青子。
してないわよ。してるのは宗十郎の方だっていうの。
good projection. Alice's additional remarks seemed to have been the tipping point. Sojiro thought this showed she was indeed worked up about something.
しずきくんがどうかしたの？彼、今夜は比較的まともだけど。
Yeah, like there's a weight off his shoulders. Sojiro felt like that was pretty offensive too, but let it slide.
もう分かったわよ。そっちから切り出すまで黙っていようと思ったけど、私の方から聞いてあげる。宗十郎、あんた本物の光って名前に聞き覚えはない？
いや、全く。初めて聞いた。
でしょうね。
Mhm.
名簿にあんたの名前はなかったもの。なんだってあんな勘違いしちゃったんだろう。
Well, you did a good deed nonetheless.
骨折り損とまではいかないけど、また良くない評判立てちゃった。
Naoko let out an exaggerated sigh and flopped down onto the sofa. Seeing Aoko in this weakened state as an opportunity, the blue robin flew jauntily down from the sunroom.
見てたっす。自分見てたっす。ご近所じゃもう尾ひれつきまくりっす。青崎さんとこの娘さんがまた指一本で見せつぶしたとかマジパニー。指先一つでダウンとかどこまで都市伝説作る気っすか。
Robin continued to chatter praise for Aoko's deeds of valor. Pop. Aoko knocked it away with a flick of her finger and picked herself up off the sofa.
今日はお金持ってないわね。例のアルバイトはもう終わったの？
Not quite.
いや、まだ続いているよ。あのお金は預かり物だから、朝のうちに口座を作って預けておいた。
預かり物？
そう、預かり物。きっと全額返すことになる。
Sojiro took off his coat and began talking about his job as a home helper. He kept it simple, explaining how things began and the conclusion he'd come to with Tobimaru earlier. Ako seemed stunned by the outlandish circumstances, but in the end,
はいはい、やっぱりね。安心したっていうか、がっかりしたっていうか。そうよね。どう頑張っても悪事を働ける人間じゃないわよね。
he's a
あなた
good egg. What can you say? She was back to her usual offensive self. However, there was another girl in the room who had at this point gone pale.
待って。ということは、それはしずきくんのお金ではないの？
ああ、人様のお金だよ。
So, you didn't touch it, did he, Alice?
アリス？なんかとんでもない顔してるけど、どうかした？
それがどうかはしてないけど。
Oh, that's fine.
出前
Couldn't
は
have
したわ。
ordered that much. Right? Alice handed out menus for the local soap noodle shop and a cafe. The blood drained from Ako's face as she took everything in. Alice quietly passed her a small note. On it was a hastily written down order that was more than enough food for the three of them.
まさかもう注文を？
だってそろそろごちそうのタイミングか
Oh,
と
you have no money in hand, do you? Alice's accusing gaze fell on Sojiro.
俺？なんで？
そりゃあんたがいらない期待を持たせたからでしょう。アリス、あんなに喜んでたじゃない。明日はごちそうねって。
Oh, yeah, you were bringing home the dough. Figured it was time for you to share the bread. Sojiro clapped his hands together for a second time today. He remembered that Alice had said that yesterday.
ええ。あの夜、しずきくんは同意してくれたわ。
Did he? Is that a slight blush I see there? Alice was eager to emphasize that this was not her fault.
いや、それは。
そうね。アリスのミスなのは確かだけど、悪いのはあんたもよ。大金を持ち歩くってのはそれだけで危険なんだから。いい教訓になったんじゃない？観念して二人で感情を折半しなさいよ。
いや、
Mm-hmm.
そ
Gotta
れは
go
できない。
Dutch.
あのお金は預けてきたし、そもそも500円しか持ち合わせがない。
そう。合わせても足りないわね。試したことはないけど、出前にキャンセルは効くのかしら。
Can you pay with a check? An air of despair fell upon the Kuonji estate. Ako sighed as if none of this involved her. She hated to coddle them, but perhaps this was her fate.
ま、そうなるか。いいわよ。私が出してあげる。今日は臨時収入があったから、パーッと派手に使いましょう。
Gonna split the spoils of war a little bit? Ako's sudden proposal made both Sojiro and Alice perk up.
つまり、青崎のおごり。
そんな、信じられない。いいの、青子。
呼んじゃったものは今更止められないでしょ。さっき電話したんなら今頃はもう坂を登ってきてるだろうし。まあそもそもこのお金も宗十郎が発端だしね。人助けをしたら被害者の会からお礼をもらっちゃったのよ。だから気にしないで。なんか居心地悪かったし、錠剤と思って
Yeah, what can you do?
商店街に還元する。本音言う。
Her roommates began celebrating. Ako sank back onto the sofa upon seeing the happiness her gesture brought.
ああ、悪戦身につかずって言うけど、ほんとその通り。
Yeah, it couldn't have been that
臨時
much
収入は泡と消えた。
if it's all gone by fucking 3 orders of takeout. And thus, the curtain closed on a little incident involving a lot of cash. The blue robin flew down to the table again.
まったく嫌な山だったぜ。
The robin chirped and mimicked puffing on a cigarette.
まあそれはそれとして、青子さんの空回りっぷりを忘れないよう、これをカーモネーギー事件として記録しとくっすね。
The blue robin continued to laugh at the day's hero. Hako flicked the bird away just as someone knocked at the door. Alice had ordered her favorite omelet dish and a set of cakes from the cafe.
まあそれなら
Hako was quietly satisfied with the spoils of an honest day's work. And so closes the curtain on this side story. And next time, we will all reconvene for all these little extras about how ploys actually work, and depending on how long it takes to get through both these, maybe, just maybe, we might get back to the main story, but who knows. But that's for next time, and once again, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell. See you all next time for the next episode of Mihoyo. I need to cut out the 20 minutes on the phone with my dad and upload this video because I have to leave for work in 45 minutes, so hopefully Adobe Premiere exports this quickly. Catch you guys later. Bye. Mwah.